Associate product management has been a great way for us to kickstart our careers in tech. But looking back, there's a lot of things we wish we knew before we started.
We talked to a lot of other people who are really interested in getting into product management, and a lot of the misconceptions that we had are super common across the board.
So today we want to talk about the most common misconceptions that we hear, so that if you're interested in APM or are considering an APM role, you have all the info you need to get started. Let's start with what is product management?
Well, if an engineer builds software that solves a problem for a user and a designer designs the experiences that those users have, the product manager is the person who decides which problems to solve, why, and when. A PM sits at the intersection of business, engineering, and design, and they create a strategy and a vision for their product. They then rally a team to execute on that vision and strategy.
PM is generally a role best learnt by doing, and an APM role lets you essentially take on the responsibility of a PM, but with the mentorship and support and guidance that you really need to succeed. So there are many different ways to get into PM, but APM is a really good way to fast track your PM learning, and a lot of big tech companies actually have structured APM programs that they set up that have built some really great product leaders.
So to save you time, here are the 8 misconceptions that we're going to be talking about. If that's all the information that you need, good luck to you, all the best. If you want to dive into some of the nuance and get a really deeper understanding of what APM is all about, let's go.
Our first 2 myths are actually 2 ends of a spectrum. So the first myth is that you need a really technical degree to be an APM, and the second myth is that you need a business degree to be an APM.
This is a super common one. In reality though, PM roles vary a lot and there's a huge range of competencies that you need. In practice, what we're seeing is a lot of companies are hiring people without any particular degree. So if you have a degree in psychology or engineering or business or beyond,
whatever.
Exactly. People are hiring from all across those disciplines.
There's a lot of different types of product managers as well. So you can have PMs that are hyper technical and work on very technical, developer centric products. And if you're working on that kind of product, it's probably helpful to have some sort of technical understanding. And then vice versa, we have product management roles that are really hyper focused on business metrics and business operations. And so having an understanding of business probably helps you with some of those things too. But it really is a spectrum, and there's such a diversity of product roles that you can come from any background and be really successful as a PM. So the 3 main areas that you need to kind of have an understanding of in product are engineering, business, and design. Now, it's helpful to be familiar with all 3 and then have more of a specialization in one. This is helpful but not essential. If you don't have that, you'll definitely learn it on the job.
There's actually an enormous benefit to having diverse PMs with a whole range of different backgrounds. And we personally think that we should see way more PMs who come from psychology backgrounds, from philosophy backgrounds, particularly ethics, and beyond the normal canon of engineering and commerce. It's really important to have product managers with a diverse range of backgrounds as well. PM is a really high leverage position. You can have a lot of impact and you can provide a lot of guidance on the sorts of problems that companies are solving. So having that representation of a whole bunch of different viewpoints means that more people are represented in the solutions that you're building, which is critically important. Myths number 3 and 4. Number 3 is you need product management experience to get an APM role. And myth number 4 is that you could get an APM role without doing any preparation whatsoever.
APM roles generally don't require prior experience as a PM. In our opinion, they probably shouldn't. That's the whole point of having an APM role, is that you're learning. We see a lot of LinkedIn recruitment posts for APMs requiring like 3 years of experience. And in my opinion, then you're hiring for a product manager, not an associate product manager.
So if it's not experience, what is it that recruiters look for? Well, generally it's a few things. One is some sort of leadership experience. The second one is an ability to just get shit done and make shit happen. And the third one is a real engagement and passion for solving problems. That's really your job as a product manager. This might include things like being the exec of a student society, starting a startup, even if it's a failed startup. And it might include things like doing hackathons and other projects like that, particularly if you did a lot of product managery type things in there, like understanding users and making sure you had a really clear user problem before you went and solved a problem, or pitching, or things like that.
On the flip side, you definitely can't get an APM role without doing any prep. Product management is a very particular type of mindset. It requires a very particular type of thinking. And this type of thinking is definitely something that you can learn and get better at with practice. The interviews for product roles will usually test this type of thinking. We'll link a book that goes through a bunch of the different question types that you could get asked in a product interview. It's super helpful. But we really recommend that you kind of treat this as like a training camp for the kind of thinking that you're going to need once you do get your product role, once you're successful in the recruitment process. Because in our experience, you do use a lot of the frameworks and types of thinking that they test in the interviews actually on the job. So definitely study up and practice flexing that product thinking muscle, and really be intentional in preparing how you communicate and structure your thinking, because that's something that you really need to do as a good PM. All right, myth number 5, as an APM, you are the boss.
Yeah, so product management requires influencing without authority. So you need to be able to rally a team around the vision that you have and around the strategy that you have, but you don't have the authority of being anybody's boss.
This definitely doesn't mean that PMs are not leaders. A big part of this job is navigating ambiguity, and it's really important to have leaders to look to set direction through that ambiguity. Most good PMs will spend a lot of time thinking about their team, thinking about what they need, thinking about how to make sure they stay motivated, and you should care really deeply about this even though you're not the boss.
Myth number 6 is that as an APM, you are just a trainee.
Yeah, don't expect to have your hand held for you as an APM. You'll definitely be expected to dive into the deep end and start making shit happen. And you should have your own set of projects and outcomes that you are responsible for.
However, a good PM culture will set you up for success here. So you'll have access to the mentorship and the guidance and the help that you need to really be successful in doing that. You are thrown in the deep end, but you are given all of the tools and the mentorship that you need to thrive.
Just to clarify, what we mean when we say thrown in the deep end is that APM is generally a role with a lot of responsibility, but there should be a lot of support there too. Okay, myth number 7 is that APM is the only way to get into product management.
Yeah, far from it. So we see amazing product managers coming from all over the place. They come from engineering, design, management consulting,
sales, marketing,
data science, you name it, you'll get great PMs that come from that field. So there really is a super diverse range of ways to get into product management. APM is far from the only one. Our advice would be focus on the way that the role that you have now or what you're doing at the moment crosses over with product management, and really lean into that side of things and try and engage with the PME side of the world. So if you're an engineer, for example, that might look like getting more involved with how what you're building solves a user problem and solves a business problem. You might do things like go to customer interviews and engage more with writing the product requirements or the product spec. So you really are seeing how product management work translates into your work. And as you get closer and closer to the PM work, you'll develop a lot of the experience and a lot of the expertise you need to make that jump if that's something that you want to do.
Totally.
Our final myth is that product management is the same thing as product ownership or program management or product analytics or project management. Need I go on?
Yeah, we still find it quite difficult to explain what jobs we do. And definitely a lot of people that we speak to tend to conflate product management with one of these other roles like program management or project management. Neither is better than the other, but they do serve different functions within a business and tend to be quite different in the core responsibilities that they require.
Now, there is a lot of crossover a lot of the time, and you might find that what is called a program manager at one company is essentially doing the same thing as what a product manager is doing at the other. So in no way are these things clear cut, but if you think about the archetypal version of these roles, there is sort of a set of responsibilities that is associated with being a product manager versus being a product analyst versus being a product owner, for example. And it's important to understand that at that kind of canonical level, there are some differences between the different roles and that what they end up doing.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our 8 myths about associate product management. If this role sounds like something that speaks to you or something that you might be interested in, please apply. Even if you're somebody that feels like, I'm not 100% qualified for this role, please just apply anyway, because as we've talked about, people in this role are really, really diverse in the backgrounds that they come from, and there is no one way to be a good PM.
Now, if you are interested, we've included a bunch of great resources in the description, so go check those out. Shameless plug because we wrote some of them, but there's some other fantastic ones. For example, the interview book that we absolutely recommend reading if you are going to be interviewing for a product manager role.
So that's the end of the video. We really, really hope that you found this helpful. If you did, consider leaving us a cheeky little like and subscribe. And if you have any other questions that you want us to talk about or expand on, leave them in a comment below.
Bye.
Bye.